There's a lot of sugar in those.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of sugar in them. You don't like them?
Yeah, make it.
I like it.
Looks like you were in pain trying to eat them.
Yeah, I thought something was going on with your tooth.
It hurt my tooth. Yeah, I haven't been to the dentist in like 4 years. 5 years.
See, we've already talked about this, but that's what we talked about last week. Flossing. He said he doesn't floss, and I'm like,
I started flossing in college.
you have to start flossing. So
I'll help.
I'm going to give you that for Christmas in your stocking.
I'll help
You're
you.
going to get a stocking with floss and
Floss with this chocolate chip cookie.
yeah, cookies and floss. Balance.
I had a dentist one time give me crap because I generally average like flossing 5 times a week, basically weekdays. And he's like, well, you should really do it 7. I was like, I'm probably doing this more than 90% of your patients. And you're going to give me a hard time. I didn't go back.
So
I don't know if it's your teeth you have to worry about. Well, your teeth do look kind of nasty right now with your face, man. You need some astringent.
I didn't know Freddie Krueger had braces. Looks like he has braces.
It does look like he has braces.
He also has a podcast now.
I think he just has something fungus or something.
All right, Jake. So were you
Tell us.
truly able to enjoy Saturday, or were you just too nervous?
Oh, no, it was well, the wedding was Friday, so Saturday was like the day to pack everything up from Heinz History Center and come back.
Oh, the wedding was Friday.
It was a Friday
I
night
didn't
wedding.
realize that.
So while you guys were out
So you
covering
weren't
football,
paying attention to high school football.
not a
sports at all?
single thing. The only football I saw all weekend until Sunday was the Pitt game was on during our rehearsal dinner. So we saw that blowout in the first half. But no,
3 pick sixes.
it was crazy. No, it was honestly a great time. We had a bunch of people tell us like going in, it's going to go very quickly. You're going to forget a lot of things because it's going to be too busy. And Mallory and I were talking on the ride back home on Saturday. We never felt like that, actually. We felt like we were busy the entire day. From the moment we got up until the end of the night, it was constantly one thing after the other, but we never felt rushed. We felt like we were able to take in almost everything. Like I could remember a whole lot of stuff that happened that day. Maybe not specific conversations and everything, but we could remember a whole lot of stuff. And it was really, really good time. Everything that we hoped it would be, it was. The worst thing we had happen to us was, and this will be good for an audio medium, the circuit breaker that the DJ booth was connected to blew right after our first dance. And we were supposed to throw it. We had a friend that was going to queue up Renegade by just screaming into the audience, play Renegade. He forgot his cue, and 10 seconds later, the power went out because they tried to dim the lights and the bistro lights that we had overhead. And that surged the circuit breaker. But it wasn't the DJ's fault. It was actually our venue coordinator's fault because she actually plugged it into the wrong outlet. And it ended up just being really funny. Like, we just played it all off. It was fine. It just created a laugh for a little bit. But that was the worst thing that we had happen all day. The rest of it, our photographer made sure that we got to what we needed to do without, being too rushed. Her parents and my parents had a great time. My cousin was our surprise guest. We had my 39-year-old cousin from Chicago was our flower girl. Only 4 people knew that he was going to be flower girl. And
that's funny.
He ran out to I'm Just Ken. And he had the wig with the bandana and everything. It was hilarious. I've got video of it from my cousin.
Yeah, we need to see that.
Oh, it's so good. I'll show you guys at the end of the show. But it was so funny. He stole the show. Everyone was cracking up. My aunt came up to me afterwards and was just like, I can't believe you did that. I was like, how many times did you ask where your son was? And she's like, twice.
Oh
So,
my gosh.
It was great. We had a great time.
Memories.
That was like a dramatic pause.
July 13th, 2013. That's the date I got married. And
July 13th.
Yeah.
July 13, 2013.
I graduated college a month and a half before that.
I'm getting married on October 25th,
Wait a second.
2031.
2056.
Yeah. Wait, what? You already know the date you're getting married?
That was a joke. I was just throwing a date out there because I feel left out.
And he picked the date that I just got married. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I didn't mean to do that.
Yeah. That's what you did. Yeah.
One of our guests, one of our old coworkers, we sent him the save the date a year ago, and he's like, "Nope, you gotta change it. That's my anniversary." He did not want me, not her. He likes her. He did not want me to get married on 25th.
I had a cousin who got married in September of 2000, and he got married on the opening day of the NFL season. And when he told his brother, my other cousin, when the wedding was, the older cousin looked at him and said, "What are you doing? You know the Steelers play that day." But the date was his wife's request to specifically get married on that day because her grandparents got married 60 years before or whatever on the day before, and her parents got married 2 days after that. At that point, it was like 25 years before, so she wanted to be right in the middle.
Interesting.
And to do that, I believe it was September 3rd, 2000. Look it up. The Steelers lost to the Ravens that day 16-0. So at least there was some alcohol involved to help us cope with the shutout loss to the hated Ravens.
Mallory picked the 25th because I wouldn't let her do Halloween because my brother is a Halloween baby, and I was just like, I want those 2 dates separate. But she picked the 25th because it's the anniversary of the original movie Halloween, like the original one, not
1978. Great year.
You are just like you are an encyclopedia. We need to have more questions for you.
For today, I'm a truck driver. I'm hauling sports knowledge. Destination
What trucking
unknown.
Company do you work for?
Oh, I'm hauling sports knowledge. Destination unknown.
I thought you said you were going to Minneapolis.
Well, I got to go to Minneapolis to get him a jersey. Got to swing by Leechburg on the way home.
He would have killed it. He would have killed it at our wedding. We were at one point we're gonna do like you could win a bunch of extra party favors, which were just Halloween candy because Halloweenish wedding. We had a little quiz that we were gonna do, and a lot of them were like Halloween related, and one of them would have been what was the what year and date did the movie that your table is come out? Because all of the tables were different Halloween or horror movies. We had ours was Halloween, obviously. Our family table for the parents and dates of the bridal party were the Addams Family, because obviously. And then we had Nightmare Before Christmas, Nightmare on Elm Street, Hocus Pocus, and like 5 others. We had 8 total, so it was really. There it is. You
there
called
it is.
So we had 8 total, and we were gonna build some questions around like what table your movie is. So those were really cool. Everyone got a kick out of those too. And now everyone's getting a kick out. We just got our first photos, our first preview photos, and we had some with our bridal party that were doing like zombie walk or stalking us in the trolley at Heinz History Center, and they're having a blast.
What every newlywed couple wants, people in masks stalking them. That's actually a movie called The Strangers. Have you guys seen that movie?
That's a messed up movie.
That movie's messed up.
There's no soundtrack.
That movie actually disturbed me so much. I was like, I don't know if I want to have a house in the woods now.
Yeah,
like, it was messed up.
They ask at the end, why are you doing this? And he says, the girl says, because you were home.
Because you were home and because we were bored. And I heard that was based off of something that actually happened.
Yeah.
Some teenagers did that.
Wow.
Yeah, but in other news, it's not so scary. Deontay Johnson has just been traded to the Ravens. Derek.
Oh.
Whoa.
I hope he has a terrible time there.
Did that just happen?
Just
the
happened.
Ravens nevermore.
Is that? Do you need any more of a sign
Always.
how things change from week to week in that
Thank
league?
you.
The fact that the Ravens just
Edgar
lost to
Allan
the Browns.
Poe.
I mean, come on.
Yeah, the Browns are. Hey,
What's
come on.
up?
We got to get going here. I'm going to be late on my next run.
Yeah.
Welcome to Eye on Sports, where we delve into the biggest Butler County sports topics. I'm your host, Butler Eagle Sports writer Derek Pida. Joining me are fellow sports writer Brendan Howell and Eagle Sports editor Jake Adams.
Today's episode is sponsored by Butler County Chamber of Commerce, Robert Stevens Custom Jewelers, R.W. McDonald & Sons Incorporated. Thank you to our sponsors for supporting Eye on Sports.
Derek, how you doing today?
I'm okay.
Had a long drive last night.
What's going on? Talk to us.
Well, I didn't know what to dress up as. I was originally going to wear a trucker hat, but I thought that would be kind of weird with the headphones on. So I'm a hatless trucker. I'm a hatless trucker.
I've done I've done trucker hats. There's that pirate hat there, but that's not a trucker hat. You need a trucker hat.
But,
I realized, Laura, for anyone who wants to go back and watch last week's episode, that I had a hair sticking up the entire episode.
You did, and
he's alfalfa.
It's funny. At one point, I was sitting here and I was looking at you, and I was like, "Should I tell him?" By the time I noticed, I was like, "It's already so far in."
I watched the YouTube video. I was like, I can't watch this. Shut off.
Do you know who Alfalfa is?
I know he's from some
Our
80s
Gang.
movie.
Get on YouTube and look at Our Gang. He has this real thin piece of hair that always sticks up the
and
back
it's
of his
like,
head.
it's almost pointy, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's like he put like gel on it to keep it straight. And
Oh, he takes that little girl flower. Doesn't he give her flowers?
is that Delilah?
I thought you were talking about me bringing
Yeah.
Bailey flowers last week for a second.
Yeah, we talked about that.
She got a real kick out of when I said I was in charge. She texted me. She said, "Haha, that's funny."
Oh, so she listened to it, and
Yeah.
You're Alfalfa, and tell Bailey that her new name is Delilah.
oh, that's what you guys should be a couple's costume.
And also
We went to the party on Saturday night. I dressed as her in leggings, and she put her wig on me, and like a beanie hat, and one of her shirts, like a T-shirt that was smaller, but it was like some musical
you
artist.
dressed like her, and she dressed like you.
She dressed like me. She looked a lot better as me than I did as her. She bought khakis. She put on like a pullover that I wear. She put on glasses, and I forgot my media credential because I would have given that to her, but I gave her a newspaper, and she was carrying that around. Nobody at the party knew who I was, so they were confused.
Ask her if she can come in and proof for us a couple of nights a week.
but
Honestly,
Yeah,
more eyes on a page never hurts. I'm telling you.
said she might have to get a second job. We'll see.
I went to my party as a bachelor and came away a married man, so
Nice,
I win.
nice.
Hey, Steelers won yesterday, so I win.
Yeah, I didn't get
And
to watch.
also, your Eagles beat the Bengals, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey,
And somehow
Rambo.
actually played good football.
Rambo, hey, it's all good, man. We're good. We're safe. All right. Yeah. Let's. Yeah.
Let's dig in.
Alrighty, glad to be joined today by Dante Culpepper and Freddie Krueger. I am Jim Bob, a truck driver. I got to make my next run here shortly, so we're going to dive right into the Ion Sports podcast for October 29th, but it's going to be dropped appropriately on Halloween.
What is your CB radio name?
I got going to ask you. You guys know a place where I can get my CB fixed? Breaker 10-4. We got to open up with football just because we're now into the playoffs, and the playoff brackets just came out this past Saturday in both District 9 and the WPIAL. We have 6 teams that qualified for the postseason. I want to get you guys' thoughts on any team that's in the postseason, the run they've made this year so far, or moving forward, whatever your thoughts are. We're game. Brendan.
I think that the two best teams in our county, Mars and Carson City, I'm looking forward to the rematches they have with the teams that beat them pretty soundly earlier this year. We're going to get into our picks later, but I think that each of them have a real chance to, I don't want to say surprise people because they've found their footing since those big losses, but I think that both of them have a really good chance to turn the tide around and atone for those earlier losses.
You know, I wanted to, in my story last week, I covered Freeport. They lost to Ammonite Christian, and in the story I put that took away they had a chance, and I'm not saying they would have gotten even with a win, but that took away their chance at a bye. And I also stuck in the story that it probably cost them a home playoff game this Friday, and the second part of that turned out to be wrong because Freeport finished 7-3 overall, third place in the Allegheny 7 conference, and they got a 7 seed, which is good enough in Class 3A for a home game. They're hosting Mount Pleasant this Friday. I thought that a loss earlier this year, I'm sure you guys will remember this, there's the second week of the season, they lost to Derry, and Derry is not a good football team. I think they finished the season with 3 wins, and I thought when the WPIAL, the powers that be that come up with the brackets and the seedings, I thought they were going to look at that because they do look at the whole season. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was going to cost Freeport a home game, but it didn't. And now the Jackets stay home for one more week, and they're hosting Mount Pleasant, my dad's alma mater. I don't think he's going to the game, though. One other thing I did want to mention, though, is in District 9, Class A playoffs. Now, there's 7 teams that made the playoffs in Class A in District 9. The top 5 seeds are Port Allegheny, Red Bank Valley, Union AC Valley, Keystone, and Ridgeway, all teams from District 9, Region 2. The 6th and 7th seeds are Otto, Eldred, and Cameron County, both from Region 3. So think about what that means. The champion from one region, Otto Eldred, was ranked 6th in the entire district. The champion was ranked below the teams that finished 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th in Region 2. So obviously the district knows that District 2 is Region 2 is the much tougher region, and obviously the seedings bear that out. Otto, Eldred, and Cameron County, 1st and 2nd place in Region 3, and they get the 6 and 7 seeds in the playoffs. We'll talk about Union AC Valley's game against Otto Eldred later on. But Jake, newly married, we're going to go to you for your thoughts on football in Week 11.
First,
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. I want to ask Brendan, do you think Karn City is going to be able to turn around a 65-0 loss?
I do. They scored
okay.
60 points in 3 of the past 4. I think
True.
that offense is rolling at this point.
That is not against Central Clarion, though. They did.
it was mistakes that did them in last time to keep the ball on the ground.
A lot of mistakes.
Yeah, exactly. So fewer mistakes might help. And the fact that Cole Johnson might be able to keep them. He's distracting me. The fact that they might be able to keep the ground game going with the 3-4 guys they have there, and then their quarterback, if he makes good decisions, I think that they could win that game.
Okay.
I'm going to go out on that limb.
I mean, it would be – Derek, I'd almost want to, reach out to someone at PIAA or District 9 or whatever and ask has there ever been a 2-game turnaround of that. Wow. I've seen some games that, a team has lost to a team in the regular season, by 21 points and then won the postseason rematch, but not 65.
I wish I would have did the research on this. I didn't know you were – but he does have purple on, so I guess he's got to pick the Gremlins. Back in 2020, that was, of course, the COVID year, and Karn City lost to Brookville in the regular season. It wasn't 65-0, but it was a blowout. I think it was something like 42-7, 42-14. Came back in the playoffs. Brookville, I don't know if it was because of COVID, because of injuries, but they were down 3 or 4 of their top players, and Karn City ended up beating them in the district playoffs. I think it was 34-7, 35-7. So that's a turnaround, but that's not 65-0 to beating that.
Zach Keppel told me a story about that game, actually, because after they got beaten in the regular season, they were heading down there again for that championship game. He said that a woman stopped him at a gas station when the coaching staff stopped, because they drove up separately. They stopped at a gas station, and this old woman said to him, "You guys shouldn't have even bothered coming down here."
Oh, man.
Bulletin board.
Man.
No, anyway, I didn't realize North Catholic was going to get in. Obviously, I missed everything that happened last week. Didn't watch a single minute of football. Didn't really check much of the scores. But I thought going into last week before I left that North Catholic wasn't going to make the playoffs. So to see them in was the surprise to me. Obviously missing a week of information to kind of tell me whether or not that made a little bit more sense. But I remember us, midway through the season, we did an over-under 5.5 or 4.5 teams making the playoffs, and 2 of us had the over on that, so we got that there.
Yeah.
I think, though, it's tough for me to see us having a team left in a few weeks. These are some really tough brackets and some really tough seedings that our teams were handed. Karn City having a rematch against a team that beat them by 65 to start this week. Seneca Valley's got Central Catholic in 2 weeks. I mean, that's brutal.
Seneca Valley doesn't play until November 8th just because there's only 4 teams from that district, from WPIAL Class 6A that make the playoffs. They didn't get a bye. Yeah. They don't even start the playoffs until November 8th yet.
Seems like every year Class 6A and the WPIAL is North Allegheny and Central Catholic anyways. So
yeah, and it sure looks like it's shaping up to be that again. It just seems like it's going to be really tough sledding. If we got teams that make it out of that second week of the playoffs, that'll be a good run this year.
There are other things going on besides football, Brendan, as you know. All this stuff happened this past week, and I'm just running down a few things here. You guys can talk about what you want to talk about, but I thought I'd mention that Karn City senior Chloe Fritsch, who was coming back from that injury sustained during the basketball season last year, tore her ACL. She closed her high school golf career by finishing tied for 9th place in the state. North Catholic girls tennis reached the state semifinals before falling to eventual champion Lower Moreland. Freeport's Michael Braun, first place at the Whitbill meet this past week at that was Class AA. He led a group of Butler County runners who qualified for the state championship. I think there were 11 total that are going on from Butler County to Hershey this weekend for states. Freeport and Mars. This is pretty impressive. It's a big game coming up on this Wednesday, a day before the podcast drops. Freeport and Mars volleyball both won 2 playoff games last week, and because of that means they'll be facing each other in Wednesday's semifinal at North Allegheny. Brendan, I believe you're going to be there. The winner goes on to the Whitbill Championships on Saturday down at Peters Township. And this did not happen last week. It actually happened last night, but I thought I would mention Seneca Valley girls soccer defeated Cannon McMillan Monday night to reach the Whitbill Class 4A final. They'll be taking on Peters Township this Friday. So we won't just be covering football. We'll also be covering football, if you get what I mean. All right. So pick something to talk about, Brendan. What? Thank you. Hey, truckers have a lot of they have a lot of knowledge. So just
A lot of free time to think about.
a lot of
dad
free
jokes.
time. Yeah. In between my runs, that is. Brendan, pick something that you want to talk about. What interests you outside of football right now as we near the end of the fall sports season?
I feel like everyone always thinks cross country is a sport that these people are just running, like these kids are just running. They are, but there always seems to be something around that sport that I find interesting, especially when it gets to being the championship meets or things like that. Michael Braun, we've known how talented he is this whole year, and he sat out the first few weeks of this season with a lower back injury, and as a runner, I'm sure that can be very difficult. I actually led my story with the fact that he was riding a stationary bike to kind of stay in shape, to do the heartbeat, like the heart rate, his coach was saying. So the fact that he went from 2 weeks ago not even being able to run to last week running faster than anybody in the WPIAL was incredible to me. So props to him.
I had a lot of runners that used to ride stationary with me when I taught that. And it's great for your joints and the circulation, but the endurance, it helps you like boost your endurance because of the cardiovascular aspects, like the intervals and pushing against resistance. Like we would have people that would ride more than run to train for the LA Marathon.
Wow.
And they're like, our PRs are dropping significantly because they're not putting as much pounding on their joints by just running.
Yeah.
And the cross-training aspect of it, the only tricky thing with runners, and I would tell people this all the time, is that you have to get out of that plane of motion. Think of the plane of motion you run in, the plane of motion you ride a bike in. So I'm like, you need to be doing something to get out, because what's going to end up happening is your IT band's going to get tight, your knees are going to start, I could go down a rabbit hole here on this, but you know what I'm saying? So yeah, stationary bikes are like, they're so good for cardiovascular health and endurance and
I gotta
PRs.
hop on that bike.
Yeah.
Get going. I
That's
got a turkey bowl
exactly
to win
it.
in a month.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, the turkey bowl.
The only sporting event Brendan's going to talk about for the next month.
If I lose, you guys aren't going to want to see me that Tuesday.
So wait, when is this? Because we got to come see this situation.
December 1st. John
happen.
Henrietto, our legendary former sports editor, is reffing that game.
What day of the week is that? A Saturday?
It's a Sunday.
It's a
Sunday
Sunday,
morning.
and it's at Alameda, right?
Yeah.
We all need to come and
No,
like
that's the
have
day
signs.
we're putting up our Christmas tree. Sorry. Putting up our Christmas tree that day. But we do have a big ornament in Brendan's honor.
It's going to be a joke coming.
It's
Is
like
it just like a turkey with his face on it?
No, it's a big dollar sign. It's about this big, hanging from the tree. Because he's a money man. Anyhow.
Says the trucker making bank on the road.
They make good money.
They do.
I wanted to mention this because I thought it was pretty impressive. We know that this year Mars won the section title, Freeport's section title, and that was the first time in 20 seasons that Freeport did not claim at least a share of a section title. The Yellow Jackets entered the playoffs as the number 6 seed, and this past Saturday they were down 2-1 in a WPIAL Class 3A quarterfinal at number 3 Chartiers Valley. So they're on the road, they're on the brink of elimination, and the Yellow Jackets respond by winning sets 4 and 5. And I wanted to bring this up. I was down at Freeport's gym just a couple weeks ago to cover a match against Mars, and in their gym there's a banner that reads, "Freeport Girls Volleyball, Tradition Never Graduates." You're talking about a program that had won 19 straight section titles, 7 WPIAL titles, and 2 state titles. I have to believe that Freeport's current players know what volleyball means to that school, and the tradition that the program has had something to do with their ability to fight off elimination. It was pretty impressive. Chartiers Valley is a really good team, and Freeport knocked them off. Now they're facing Mars for the right to play Saturday in the WPIAL Championship. So whatever happens from here on out for the Yellow Jackets, great job for them to get to this point, and we'll see what happens with the game you're covering at North Allegheny on Wednesday against Mars. I think it should be a really good match. I don't think it's going to be a sweep like Mars earned earlier this year against Freeport. They swept the Jackets back in, I believe it was late September. I think it's going to be much closer this time.
If we have, 3 matchups this week, and one of them will be out before this drops online, but 3 matchups this week that are all rematches, right? Freeport Mars, we have the Mars Montour football game, and we have Carson City Central Clarion football game.
Yes, I'm not sure if North Catholic girls soccer played Quaker Valley earlier this year.
Okay.
Because that's a matchup too, but I'm not sure about that one. But at least 3 rematches.
So of those 3, who do you think has the best chance of getting revenge this week?
I think the best chance at revenge is Freeport over Mars. I'm not
I
saying
agree.
the Yellow Jackets are definitely going to win, but if you're asking me which team has the best chance, because Freeport played Mars twice this year. They're in the same section, so they played them twice. The match held at Mars, I just mentioned, Mars swept that match.
Yeah.
The rematch, the first rematch, which took place just 2 weeks ago, was down at Freeport, and Mars won that match, but it was 3-2. It was much closer. Jamie Radvan, who was hurt for that first matchup, she has returned to Freeport's lineup, and she made a big difference in the second meeting between those teams. And even though Freeport lost, they played much better than they did the first time around. And now that a spot in the WPIAL Championship is going to be on the line, I expect it to be a really good match, close match, probably 5 sets, unfortunately for you, Brendan. But it should be a good one. Planets and Freeport, whoever makes the title match out of that matchup, they've earned their way there, obviously. And a lot of people picked Mars to have a really good season. I think Freeport was expected by some to have kind of a down season, and they didn't win a section title, but they're still alive, still able to make some noise here, and credit to them for that.
One other thing to shout out here real quick, too, is that Mars soccer lost last night but still has a chance to make states. They have to win their third-place match later this week.
Yeah, Mars boys soccer fell to Franklin Regional last night 2-1, but on Wednesday, just tomorrow, they get a chance to keep their season alive and enter the state playoffs if they can beat Bethel Park. So we'll keep an eye on that and see what happens there. Mars Boys is another program. They always seem to be in the mix. They won a state title in 2020, and now they have a chance to get back to the state playoffs and make another run there.
Welcome to Beyond Butler, our weekly segment where we talk about something outside of Butler County, whether that be collegiately or professionally. My topic for this week is going to be George Pickens catching the end zone last night that ended up being called back as he did not get both feet in, but he got 1 foot in twice. What do you guys make of that rule, and what do you think of that play?
I'll be honest with you. I know I'm probably going to be I'm going to be in the minority when I say this, but I think games should be officiated by the rules that are in the rule book. Right? I mean, if a guy fumbles the ball before his knees hit the ground, before he's down, how do we know that's a fumble? Because in the rule book it says it's a fumble. You have to follow the rules that are in the rule book. So last night the catch by George Pickens was ruled not a touchdown because he didn't get both feet down. He got 1 foot down twice, but he didn't get both feet down. In the rule book, that's an incomplete pass. I wish that they would go back to the old rule, and this was done away with my guess is 4 or 5 years ago, where it was up to the referee to make a decision. Did the receiver not get his second foot down because he was pushed out by a defender? And if the official determined that the second foot would have come down without contact by the defender, it was called a catch. They did away with that rule a few years ago. I like that rule. Now it's you got to have 2 feet down, even if a bulldozer comes and knocks you out of bounds. You still have to get 2 feet down to for it to be considered a catch, or in this case, a touchdown. That was actually two touchdowns Pickens had last night that were called back. One because of a penalty, and one because of the second foot not getting down. But I believe that rules are in place for a reason. The rule book exists for a reason. You got to go with the rule book. I'm just glad the Steelers won.
I'm surprised that, because you've generally been like an old school, like smash mouth football kind of fan, and the NFL going back to this rule a few years ago, like you mentioned, of like if you make contact with the receiver and push him out of bounds while he's making the catch, it's just an incomplete pass if he doesn't get both feet down. That was a rule when I was a kid, and when they instituted this, like subjective, officials can decide whether or not a foot not getting down was because of the defender. There was a lot of like consternation about that originally, of like, well, you're just taking away another tool for the defensive back to try to stop receivers. So I'm making a note of that. It's interesting, and like how you've talked about football before, that you're actually like pro offense in that way.
So I'm not sure when you say you were a kid, so we're talking what, like late 90s?
Yeah, late 90s. I think they changed that rule originally in like the early 2000s or something.
When I was a kid, it was subjective. The official was able to, and I know anytime you're dealing with something that's subjective, it can change it. Well, but it's the same thing as a strike zone in baseball. You can go up against a game. You can go into a game where the home plate umpire is giving the pitchers a little bit of leeway on either side of the plate, an inch and a half off the plate. That's a strike. The next night, you can have a home plate umpire that you have to literally be on the black stripe to be called a strike. So it's subjective. I agree with that. But I will say this. I know this is a little bit off topic, but you got to admit, and I know you're a big Justin Fields fan, Russell Wilson has something going on with George Pickens. I mean, as far as the connection they've been able to form there. Yeah, that's a little bit off topic, but it does deal with Pickens, and we're talking about Pickens last night in a touchdown, not touchdown. Got to like what Russell Wilson's doing.
My friends and I found ourselves talking last night as the game was going on. They were texting in the group chat, which I have on my Mac, and they were saying that they hope we can sign both Fields and Wilson back next year, which I think would be hard to do. One would have to take a major pay cut. You figure Wilson is making his money from Denver right now, so really maybe he could take a pay cut. It seems like whenever you sit in press conferences with him, it's hard not to really like Russell Wilson. Like, he deflects all the praise on his teammates. Like, the question I asked last night was about his throw to Pickens on that deep ball, where he literally put it where only Pickens could get it, yard away from the sideline from like 40 yards down the field. Beautiful throw. And he ended up talking about the route that Pickens ran instead. I was like, that was probably one of the nicest footballs I've seen thrown in person in my life. And you talk about your receiver instead. It's hard not to like him.
I do think Pickens did a great job on the touchdown that was ruled not a touchdown because of the 2 feet thing. He got blasted by a defensive back there. I mean, in today's rules, you have to not just withstand the hit, but also when you hit the ground, you have to hold on to the ball, not lose control of it. And he did that. It just, the 1 foot came about probably 2 inches from touching the ground, and that's why it wasn't a touchdown.
What I like that Pickens did was on that fumble that Wilson had later in the game, the Giants defender was returning it, and he went to go tackle the guy, but he realized he was already tackled. He elbow dropped him. Did you see that? No. It was on Twitter. It's hilarious. It looked like a wrestling move. Like he leg dropped him. He didn't get penalized for it because he was trying to get out of the way. Like, he was trying not to get his legs broken.
Quick thoughts though on the Steelers entering their bye week.
Oh, I feel good with what the team has done. The second half of the season, something that they brought up in the press conference last night, and something that the players kept talking about, was they have all 6 of their AFC North games left. And you mentioned earlier, I'm not sure if the mic's rolling yet, about Baltimore and Cleveland, what can happen in games against divisional opponents. It's safe to say the Steelers lose at least 2 divisional games. don't you think?
I wouldn't be surprised if they go 4-2.
Then they have the Eagles who are looking good, the Commanders who are looking good,
The Chiefs.
The Chiefs. Oh man, yeah. So those are their 3 remaining non-divisional games, and then the rest are divisional games. So it's going to be there is not an easy opponent on the schedule the rest of the way. So 6-2 is nice, but 6-2 can turn into 6-6 really quick. And then
look at last year. They were, granted, they had Kenny Pickett at quarterback, so you got to throw that into the mix. But they were looking really strong for a playoff spot, and they ended up making the playoffs. But when they lost to the Cardinals, a 2-win team at home, and the next, actually it was 4 days later because they played Patriots on a Thursday. 4 days later, they lose to a 2-win Patriot team at home. I don't think they make the playoffs last year if they stuck with Kenny Pickett or Mitch Trubisky. I think Mason Rudolph entering that offense the last 3 weeks was what sparked them.
I am just impressed by Brendan's self-restraint to not talk about Ohio State, Penn State this week. Really impressed by that.
You see, I'm hoping I'll be able to watch that game, whether somehow the game is before whatever game I have to cover on Saturday, if there's somehow not a game I have to cover on Saturday. My roommate was in a Penn State frat, went there. I think I've talked about him, the one that's my age. He's a little bit more, I don't want to say tolerable because him and I are like good friends, but he's much better of a roommate than my other roommate. He's going to State College for that game. My brother.
Get that?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
What?
Well, just all these roommates, good roommate.
Just jotting down notes.
Good.
Make sure we keep track of the Brendan storyline. We got it. Keep going.
As Brendan's world turns.
He's going to State College. Tyler might not be home. All I know is
I need a
that
soundtrack for the roommates. Go ahead.
if Ohio
the
State
song from Friends.
if Ohio State loses, I'm not going to hear the end of it, and I'm going to probably have to stab my eardrums out so I don't have to hear it anymore.
Don't do that.
Drew Aller, questionable for this week's game.
Yeah.
Eli Holston also
Ohio State
questionable
didn't
for
look good
Pitt
against
State.
Nebraska last week, though. So I honestly think if Day would have lost that game, his job would have been decided by the end of the season. Like, he would have been out.
Central York legend Cade Prabula could be the starting quarterback to take down Ohio State this week.
Not
Just saying.
happening.
Hey, Jameis Winston, backup quarterback, led the Browns to a win this past Sunday.
Oh my God, his pregame speech to his team was so ridiculous. I listened to that.
Is there any crab
Yesterday.
legs involved?
No, not this time. They also didn't eat any W's, to my knowledge, but it's maximum
He
Jameis.
quoted Eminem in his post-game interview, CBS.
Yeah, right.
I'm hoping you didn't see this one on any sort of TV broadcast. I didn't watch the TV broadcast last night, so.
By the way, I'm 5-5.
Spoiler alert. Isn't that what it says?
Yep.
Okay, good.
Saw it in the game notes last night after the game that they handed out in packets. Before Russell Wilson broke this record yesterday, which Steelers quarterback had the most passing yards in his first 2 starts with the team?
Okay, I get a little bit of time to think about that one. All right. Now we're going to go to pick time, and because we only have 5 games this week, we have 6 teams that made the playoffs, but Seneca Valley is not playing in the WPIAL 6A semifinals until November 8th. That leaves us with 5 games, which means we will be giving analysis with each of these games, followed by our picks. Mars at Montour. Jake, rematch.
We've already seen how this one went, though, in Week 5, and while the Planets have played much better since that 31-14 loss, I don't know if they played better enough to actually say that they're on par with Montour. I'm picking Montour to win a closer game this time, 35-28.
So Mars did a great job of turning its season around. At one point, they were 1-4. The last 5 games, they go 4-1. So 5-5 doesn't seem like a really good record, but when you're 1-4 at one point, 5-5 is a pretty good turnaround. And while the Planets have played much better since that 31-14 loss to Montour, the Spartans have been consistently. I'm reading your thing here. The Spartans have a very good passing game. They're averaging about 235 yards passing per game, and I think the passing attack that they bring against Mars on Friday is going to be a little bit too much. And I'm picking the Spartans, like Jake, 31-20 Montour.
You know who you can't read this week?
What's that?
Brendan's.
Oh.
Didn't write any down.
Oh.
I got it all in my head.
Yeah, he's got it
That's
all in his
always
head.
good.
What's in your head about Mars Montour?
You feel that, Derek?
No.
It's getting a little colder outside.
Oh, jeez, I'm with you.
You know what's better when it's cold outside? A
Hot
run
chocolate.
game. A run game. And
And
Mars
hot
has that
chocolate.
right now. So keep this on Friday night whenever you go to cover your game. The wool sweater you got on.
The wool sweater. It's a flannel.
I don't care what happened before. Mars is back on track. Eric Kasparovich is a good offensive coach. He knows what he's doing. I think that Mars pulls the upset here and wins 28-27.
Okay, so you're taking Mars.
I am.
Okay. One more note about Montour. Their passing attack this year, 24 touchdown passes, just 4 interceptions. Do you still want to pick Mars?
Yep.
Okay.
At least he's committed.
Yeah, he's committed.
No waffling.
Okay. Mount Pleasant at Freeport. Talked a little bit about this game earlier. I thought Freeport would have to hit the road in the first round. As it turns out, they get a home game against the Vikings. And, Brendan, we're going to go to you first on this one. Vikings or Yellow Jackets to make the second round?
I rarely pick against Freeport. I'm not going to do so here. I think, again, good run game. They have a junior quarterback in Drew Ross who is very responsible with the ball. I think that they win this one at home. This will be an exciting win for them, 28-14.
Jake.
All right, you go with the quarterback. I'm going to highlight the running back here. Amos Glenn's been one of the better backs in the WPIAL all season. Has led Freeport single-handedly to a few wins just with the damage he can do with his legs. I'm picking Freeport in this one, 35-21.
Yeah, so you talk about the quarterback, you talk about the running back, I'll talk about the defense.
All bases covered.
Freeport's defense is very good. Now, they gave up over 40 points to Amani Christian last week, but Amani Christian's the number 1 seed in the WPIAL playoffs, so no shame there. Also, Freeport almost beat earlier this season a really good Deer Lakes team, and I'm not going to pick against the Yellow Jackets in a playoff game at home. Sorry, Dad, I'm picking against your alma mater. Freeport wins this game 29-13. All right, this is an interesting game here. I'm really interested to see how this one turns out. You got North Catholic, who made the playoffs by beating Hopewell last week, and they're traveling to Deer Lakes. I think the Lancers are 8-2. Really good record.
8-2, 7-3, something like that. Yeah.
7-3. 8-2. Had a really good season. The Lancers did. And the Trojans will be invading Deer Lakes territory on Friday for the right to get to the second round. Who do you like here, Brendan?
North Catholic put up a lot of points last week in what was a de facto playoff game against a pretty quality opponent. I see that offense continue its role this week. I know that they kind of hit that rough patch for a few games, including when I covered against Beaver. I think that they've worked out what they've needed to and that they win this game pretty handily, 35-14.
Jake, do you disagree with Brendan?
So, unless something has changed in the week that I was gone, I remember North Catholic's defense being a huge weak point for them all season. The Lancers have a quarterback with 1,200 yards, 15 touchdowns. I don't think too many interceptions. And their lead running back has 1,100 yards and 16 touchdowns. That's a lot of points. I think this will be a shootout here, but I think Deer Lakes is going to come away with this one 41-28.
So, as I mentioned, the Trojans have already entered playoff mode. If they lose that game against Hopewell last week, we're not talking about them. They win that game to make the playoffs as a wild card. And Deer Lakes has had a great season, but I think North's offense will be too much for them. So you basically think that Deer Lakes' offense is going to be too much for North. I'm the other way around. I think North's offense is going to be too much for Deer Lakes. In a really good game, though, I got the Trojans winning 33-28. All right, a game I will be at, another rematch, Karn City versus Central Clarion. This game is taking place at Brookville High School. I believe it's 7 o'clock on Friday. Jake, give us your thoughts on this rematch. What was it the first time, 65-0?
65-0. I absolutely think this game is going to be much closer than this. I don't think Karn City is going to get blown out, but I also don't think they're really going to be in this one, like truly in this, one-score game down to the wire kind of thing. I'm picking Central Clarion to win this one 35-24. They're on another level.
Brendan, with his purple on, let's get the pick.
You guys heard what I said earlier. I've already chosen one upset today. I really got nothing to lose in terms of the pick standings as it is. So I am going to go with Corn City here. Like I said, I think that run game has got it going, and Central Clarion had to put up a fight against Butler last week. So I think, for the first half at least, I think that Corn City will be more motivated going to this game than Central Clarion. As a team that beats the other team that you're playing again by 65 early in the season, I think maybe could be a little relaxed. I don't think Corn City will be that way at all. They know what's at stake here. I'm going to go with Corn City to win. It's going to be a high-scoring game, but I think they win 35-33.
I'm pretty much thinking about this game along the lines that Jake is. It's not going to be a 60-plus point result like it was the first time in Central Clarion's favor, but I think the Wildcats will claim the district title in a much closer game, though. Central Clarion 30-16. Last up on our list is Otto Eldred coming to Reimersburg to take on the Falcon Knights. Brendan, do the Falcon Knights see the end of their season on Friday, or do they move on?
We talked to Union AC Valley coach last week, and he talked about a myriad of different players that help them in each game, including Max Gallagher. Owen Bish is the obvious one. So I think that Union AC Valley gets a win here against a team that hasn't played in a while. Might have to knock some rust off, 28-24.
Jake?
I think the one thing Union AC is going to need to watch in this game is the pass defense here. Otto Eldridge can throw the ball a lot with Shane McGee at quarterback. He's got 26 touchdowns, 1,800 yards, which is a really impressive total for just 8 games this year. If UAC can contain that attack, I think they're going to win this one pretty easily. But I have it being 35-27 just because one deep ball over the top of the defense could make this one a little bit closer than it might seem.
All right, so we mentioned earlier how Otto Eldred plays in Region 3 in District 9, which is a very weak region. Brendan, you just mentioned that they haven't played in a while. Their last game, the Terrors' last game, was actually October 11th. I'm not sure what the heck's going on with scheduling up in the northern parts of District 9, but they have not played. They have not played the last 2 weeks. Their one loss this year, Otto Eldred's 7-1, so they got an impressive record. But their one loss was to Kane, which is a 3-win team that plays in Union AC Valley's region. So I think it all adds up to a Union AC Valley win. I think they move on to the district semifinals with a 41-12 win. Jeez, I got to think about this one now. I haven't. First 2 starts, most passing yards before Russell Wilson did.
Yep.
Rambo Moss is very upset right now.
All right. I'm going with Cliff Stout.
Ooh.
Earl Morrell.
Who?
Earl Morrell. He started for the Colts in Super Bowl III and gave way to a not quite healthy Johnny Unitas late in the game. Johnny Unitas led the Colts to their only touchdown in Super Bowl III. But Earl Morrell was a decent quarterback, not a Hall of Famer, but he actually won NFL MVP in 1968, the year that they made the Super Bowl, but then they got upset by the Jets.
I've never heard of him. All right.
Michigan State product. I can swing by East Lansing on my way home, too. I can bring home a...
You got a lot of stops
Yeah,
tonight.
Minneapolis, East Lansing, and Leechburg. Right, okay.
Got to throw one more in there by the end of the show.
I'm 5-6 now. I'm below 500 again. Rambo, what are you doing? You got to help me out here. He's just like, whatever, give me a treat.
He's got like 20 treats throughout the course of the show.
Say, you pace this poorly.
They're
If he takes a dump in here, you're in trouble.
Yeah, no. That's
trying to
not good.
protect you. I don't
You
wanna
don't
hear anything.
understand. There was a day last week, and I don't know what was going on, but I walked in here, and every day I walked in here, I was like, it smells like something's not right back here. And that's why I was burning that candle. So if he starts to do the circle walk, just get up and...
The walk of life?
Yeah.
Okay, the last thing we're going to talk about today is just the season as a whole. And you guys all know what you thought our teams would be able to do this year, or individual players were able to do. Now that we're at the end of the regular season and entering the playoffs, which one of our football teams or individual football players is in a place right now, good or bad, that would have most surprised you as we were getting ready for the football season in August? Brendan?
I'm pretty sure we're all going to have the same answer here. I think the fact that we had Knock not only making the playoffs, but making it far in the playoffs, and they don't make playoffs, we really didn't factor in the main point that they had 28 players on their team this year, and that was before injury. Then they lose some of their key players early on as the season goes on. And obviously injuries with a school that small and a classification that just move up to really affect how a team can play. And they still showed a ton of fight. That they had that dog in them, like Rambo's barking here. It's really surprising that they didn't. In a way, it's surprising that they didn't make the playoffs. I'd say it's more so disappointing because it seemed that this could have been their year.
Jake, you ready? You want me to offer my 10 cents if I have it in my pocket?
You're a trucker. You got the money.
He's got to throw it in the toll booth when he's driving by. I think for me, maybe this is just biased because I was at their camp for a couple of days, was North Catholic. They were really confident this was a team that could make a run in the postseason. And we went into the final week of the season really, really wondering, is this team even going to be able to make it? Now, they are in the playoffs. Anything can happen from here on out. But this was a team that had a high expectation similar to Knock, and they would probably say underperformed on many of them throughout much of the season. But then, if I'm looking around just a little bit, a couple other places, Butler, I don't think any of us would have picked 4 and 6. They doubled their win total from last year. That's impressive enough for a program that's really in the middle of a rebuild, deep in the middle of a rebuild. That's pretty impressive in itself. And then I think just watching Montauk struggle all year, I don't think any of us would have picked them to go 0-9. I thought there would have been a couple wins in there, and that was a tough season to kind of watch from a distance there. So it was a bit of an up and down year for the county.
My answer to this question was I was going to talk about Knock, but Brennan kind of stole my thunder. I will mention one thing about them. Last year they had a good season, a really good season. That was at Class 3A, though. This year they made the move up. They were placed in 4A, and as Brendan mentioned, they started the season with, what do you say, 28 players?
28 players.
I mean, you're a Quad A program, and you've got 28
That's
players to
half
start.
the size of most 4As.
Right, and then they had some injuries during the season. Wyatt Foster got hurt. Of course, Colt Sprankle got hurt. Caden Spencer got hurt. So I think in the end, looking back, I think the move up to 4A affected Knock negatively more than I believed it was going to before the season. To end the show here on a good note, though, one guy that it's kind of come out of nowhere for me is Amos Glenn. I know Freeport's John Gaylott knew this kid had ability, but from an outsider's standpoint, I didn't even know the kid's name before this season. He took a year off, right? He didn't play football, and now he's well over 1,000 yards. We all picked Freeport. We think they're going to play into the second week of the playoffs. And Amos Glenn, his rushing ability, his touchdowns, obviously a big part of Freeport's success. And his was a name that before the season I would have said, okay, who's this guy? So obviously
Famous Amos.
Famous Amos, good cookies and a heck of a running back. Alter Eagles Ion Sports Podcast would like to thank our sponsors: Butler County Chamber of Commerce, R.W. McDonald & Sons Incorporated, Robert Stevens Jewelers. We encourage you to subscribe to the Butler Eagle YouTube channel and Apple or Spotify podcasts or your favorite podcast platform. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Alter Eagle Podcast and at Butler Eagle News. Goodbye.